This is the Expressive Word demo, and what we're going to do is we're going to open up Illustrator from either Applications or from our toolbar. We're going to hit Command, Option, Control, Shift, and open it. If you're on a PC, you hit Control, Alt, Shift. This will reset your preferences. Once your preferences are reset, I want you to create a new document. We're going to create a print document, we're going to change it to inches, and make it a 6x6 document as requested in the project specifications. And then we have two artboards, and we go now again we are going to create a typography workspace. So if you go up to the right here, we can go to our workspace and we can go to typography. So what I'd like for us to do first is I'd like for us to go to our preferences, and I want us to go to type, and we are going to disable this where it says fill new type objects with placeholder text. We're going to turn that off. We're going to hit OK. If you're on a PC, you go to edit and you come down here, and it should be down here somewhere, your preferences, and that's where we would change it. Next thing I want us to do is I want us to grab our type tool. I want you to hit T, and we're going to click in this space and we're going to type trans, and I'm going to finish my word. So I'm going to deselect by hitting Command Shift A, and then I'm going to click again and I'm going to hit ITION. Then I'm going to take my black arrow tool and I'd like to select both of these. Once we've selected both of these words, I'd like for us to go to the top and select Futura Heavy. If we can scroll down, we can find our heavy. Now, if you don't have heavy, you can use bold. I'd like for us to make this one small, about 36 points. And we're going to put it up here to make it look like it's transitioning. And you're also welcome to hold your Shift key and constrain the proportions and pull out so we know that it's not distorting. Now I'm going to let you guys know that you're not allowed to distort type to do this or this. You always must constrain your proportions. So you always have to hit Shift when you're scaling so that the viewer knows that it's Futura. So at the bottom here, I'm going to make it larger so that it's transitioning to something very large. So this is my experiment. So this is something you might want to do. You could also do something like this, where if we duplicated this, I'm just going to copy and paste it. And what I'd like for us to do is right click on it, and we're going to transform it, and we're going to reflect so that it's backwards. So I'm going to do it on vertical. I'm going to hit OK. You could do something like this. It's like transition. So it's just experimenting with these words and how to make them expressive. So we're going to go over to this side and we're going to type out disruption. And what I'd like for us to do is to take our arrow key, and we are going to hold our Shift key and make it large. And I'm going to make it disrupt the canvas. But this time I'm going to cut this word apart. What I'd like for us to do is to hit our right-click key. And we're going to create outlines. Now again, remember, we can't distort this. I don't want us to distort this at all, so that's not our goal. We always want to hold our Shift key. But now it has outlines, so you can see that each letter has its points and paths. The next step I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my knife tool, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of this with my arrow key, and then I'm going to take my knife tool and I am literally going to cut across it to disrupt it. And I'm going to do it again. It doesn't have to be perfect. Then I'm going to go back with my white arrow key, and I'm going to deselect, and I'm going to go back in and pick out these little parts that I want to delete. Now when you select the part that you want to delete, all you have to do is hit delete. And I'm just going to delete all of these little parts that I broke out of it. And it was kind of sloppy. Now if you wanted it to have a straight line, we could do that with something. We could do that with something like the eraser tool. And so there's my first disruption. I'm going to do another disruption. I'm going to grab my type tool and type disruption. And this time I'm going to make it larger again, but instead I'm going to hold my shift key. I'm going to make it more of an even disruption. So I'm going to right click again. I'm going to create my outlines. Now if you're not a right click person, you can always go to type and go to create outlines, which is right here. Or if you're a command key person, it's Command Shift O. Once we have it selected, underneath the knife tool, I'd like for us to grab the eraser tool. And you can control the eraser size the same way you can control the stroke size. If you hit your bracket tool, your right bracket tool will make it larger, and your left bracket tool will make it smaller. And once we make it bigger or smaller, I'm going to make this one small. I'm going to cut it into several pieces. So I'm going to hold my shift key, and the shift key allows the eraser to cut this evenly. I'm going to hold my shift key again. Maybe I'm going to make it a little smaller on the bottom. And I'll cut it one more time. Once I'm done with this, what I'd like for us to do is to make these 4 little partitions into groups. So I'm going to grab my black arrow key, and before we do anything, I would like for us to right click or ungroup. Now if you're not one of those right click people, if you have this all selected, we can also go to object, and we can go to ungroup here. So what I'd like for us to do next is, now that we have our black arrow key, I'm going to select each of these parts. Do you see that right there? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command G, which allows us to group them. Now again, if you're not a command key person, you can have them selected like that, and then you can go to Object and then hit Group. But I want us to do that for each little part of this. So I'm going to grab these bottom versions, and I'm going to hit Command G again and group those. So now when I grab them, they move around. And I'm going to grab the middle ones and group those. And I'm going to group those. And now we're going to make something that looks kind of like a little bit like it's stair-stepping. And this is my disruption. I want it to be a little bit more legible. And I might take off my snap. So that's my second disruption. So these are my little experiments. I would like for you guys to experiment with your words and try to make them as interesting as possible and as expressive as possible. Remember, you have to have 2 6x6 documents, and you have to have 2 experiments using Futura Heavy or Futura Bold if you don't have Futura Heavy. All right, good luck.